Hey everyone, I hope you're all very, very well, and welcome to part 7 in this video series looking at chromatic approaches to triads. So we've spent 6 lessons looking at approaches to major triads. Now we're moving over to minor, and we're going back to single chromatic approach from below. So without further ado, let's just work through this idea in the key of C minor. So we'll just quickly outline our C minor triad there. So we have C, our root, E flat, our minor third, G natural, our fifth, and then we have C, our octave. So if we're approaching those chord tones from a chromatic note below, our C, as with major, will be B natural. E flat, half step below that, is D natural. Half step below G is G flat, because C minor is a flat key. And then we have B natural again, going into the C. So that's how our minor triad sounds, with a chromatic note half note below. Now, for those of you that have been working along with me through this series, you know what's coming next. It's going to be working around the cycle of fourths, chromatic note below. For anybody that is kind of joining us here on part 7, just to very quickly recap why I like working these kind of ideas around the cycle of fourths. It builds fingerboard familiarity, it builds harmonic fluidity, and it forces you to look at other areas of the bass neck, because it's very, very easy to kind of get trapped within these first 5 frets. If you force yourself to work outside them, you build familiarity with this kind of area, nebulous area of the fingerboard, like between frets 5 and 10. Okay, so these exercises are really, really helpful in building that sort of fluidity. Okay, so as before, I'll work these through the first 3 keys with you, and then I will give you a playthrough of the entire cycle. Okay, I'll work through the first 3 keys. You guys can work out what's going on in the other 9. Okay, so C minor we've already done. Okay, now F minor, we have F, A flat, C natural, and F. So a half step below the F is E natural. Half step below the G, the A flat, sorry, is the G. C flat into C, and then E into F. So that's the first 2 keys. Now let's take a look at B flat minor. We have B flat, our root, D flat, our third, F, our fifth, and B flat, our octave. So if we approach each of those from a half step below, we have A natural into B, A natural into B flat. We have C into D flat. E natural into F. Then A natural into B flat again. Okay. So those are the first 3 keys working around the cycle. Without further ado, let's work around it in its entirety. Alright, so now that we've looked at a relatively straightforward harmonic exercise to build some fluidity with a single half step below our minor triad chord tones, now let's take a look at a musical example that I've prepared. This is built around the minor triad and those chromatic approaches. That is what this example is all about, as with all of the examples that we've looked at in the weeks leading up to this. So without further ado, let's drop in what this sounds like in context with the track. Alright, so let's break this down a bar at a time. We are in the key of D minor. As I said further back in the series, I don't want to just hit you with C major and minor throughout. So we have another new key today. So we've had C major and A major. Today we have D minor. So we have D natural, F, A, and D. Okay, so the half step below each of those, we have C sharp going into D. We have E natural going into F. We have A flat to A. C sharp going into D. I know I've just mixed my enharmonics, but hey. Okay, so that is the foundation of this entire groove. Okay? So let's work on this a bar at a time. So bar 1, landing right on our root note there, D. Then we've got a half step going into the 5th and then back to the root again. So it sounds like this. And 2. Then we've got a half step going into the 3rd and then down to the 5. So half step that E to the F, down to the 5, and then that would take us into the 2nd bar. But let's just work that first bar. 3, 4. And 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and. Okay. Into the 2nd bar, it's the same rhythmic idea. Well, it's actually exactly the same idea. We've got coming again, chromatic approach from below the 5, but instead of then going to the 3rd, we're doing a chromatic approach to the octave, and then down to the 5. Remember, at the end of bar 1 we had this. At the end of bar 2 we have. So chromatic approach, C sharp to D, down to the A, and then we're back down to the D. So that bar, 1 and. 3, 4. 1 and 3 and 1 and 1 and. Okay, so let's put those 2 bars together. About that tempo. 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and with these things, playing and talking at the same time is never my strong suit. This is why I don't sing and play. Anyway, bar 3 is exactly the same as bar 1. 1 and. So now we've got slightly different thing going on, well, quite a different thing going on in bar 4. So we've got groups of 4 separated by 1/8 notes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam. Okay. So the first grouping of 4. So chromatic up to the 5, down to the root. Then chromatic to the octave, down to the 5. So. Then at the very end, we've got. Now I snuck an extra. I have to confess to you all here, I snuck an extra note in. So there is one note that is not part of the triad there. It's this E natural. Because we've got a chromatic going up to the A. And I'm really hearing that chromatic to the A, to the E, to the A, and then back to the D. So I deviated from our triad slightly there. Hopefully you can all forgive me. But we've got that A flat to the A, to the E, down to the A. So that's kind of implying chord 5 against the D minor chord there. And then we go back into the root. Okay, so let's just try that bar. That speed. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, and. 1 more, and. Okay, so now let's put that all together. So 1, 2, 3, and. 1, 2. 1 and. One and. 1 and. Okay, so that's the musical example played through. Again, as always, you have the track and the PDF available via the link below. Head over to my Substack and you can grab the materials that I've used for this session. So, again, these concepts, hopefully if you've been following along with me through this series, these should all be starting to become familiar. This shouldn't be a complete shock to you when we start working through this stuff. So, again, take these ideas away. You can start applying them into some of your own lines, and you can take ideas from the musical example that I've given you there. But above all, happy practicing and have some fun with that. Thanks so much for checking out this lesson, guys. If you would like to see a full extended version with some additional stuff, you can click the link to my website down there in the description. You'll also find an ever-increasing transcription vault. I'm releasing a couple of transcriptions a month. You'll also find articles that I've written and a whole lot more. So like I said, link down there in the description. See you soon.